So today we're going to talk about discovery calls. Here, let me set it up a bit. So this is one of the things that in freelancing, a lot of people either overthink or completely wing. And usually both don't work. If you've ever ended a call thinking, wait, did that go well? Or worse, why didn't they sign up with me? This is probably where things are breaking down. So in this video, I want to walk you through three things: what a discovery call actually is, why it matters more than you think, and then the top three things I personally do and avoid. I'm MJ, and I've been freelancing since 2020. And if it's your first time here, welcome. And to those who've already subscribed, welcome back. So first, what is a discovery call? At its core, it is a conversation and not a one-man dialogue. It's where you and a potential client figure out if working together would make sense. It's not a pitch, nor is it a performance. It's not you trying to impress with everything that you know. And I think this is where a lot of freelancers get it wrong. They treat it like a job interview, like they need to prove themselves the entire time. But the reality is, you are both assessing each other. You're trying to understand, what do they actually need? How do they think? Are they someone I can work with long term? And they're also doing the same thing. So if you go into a call thinking, I just need to say the right things or the things that they want to hear from me so they will hire me, you're already putting yourself into a position where you are chasing. Now, why are discovery calls important? It matters because your discovery call sets the tone for the entire working relationship. If you show up unsure, overly accommodating, or waiting for direction, you give them a glimpse of how they can treat you moving forward. But if you show up clear, structured, and actually leading the conversation, you immediately position yourself differently. This is also where most of your sales happen. Or let's say most of the clients will sign up, not necessarily within the discovery call, but usually after, because this is where they actually see you. They see your body language, your tone, the face behind the email exchanges or the DM exchanges. They get a sense of how you think, how you communicate, and whether they can trust you. So when the call doesn't go the way you expected, it helps not to look at the client right away. Try to look at the structure of your call. I'll share a few things I personally do on my calls. These are simple, but they change the way clients respond and decide. So let's get to it. Number one is lead the call. Don't wait for the client to drive the conversation. You don't need to be rigid, but you do need a flow. And the reason I lead my calls is because most clients do not really necessarily know how to lead them, or some are already expecting you to do so because they see you as the expert. They know they need help, but they don't always know how to clearly explain or even where to start. So if you leave the call completely open, usually turns into a mix of scattered thoughts, maybe random items, and you trying to piece everything together on the spot. And that's where the call starts to feel really draining and unclear. Leading the call gives you direction. It also shows them early on that you're someone who can bring structure into their business, and that matters more than you think. Another thing I also always do in my discovery calls is to set up a simple agenda up front. Maybe this would be slide 2 on your Canva presentation, for example. Nothing complicated, just a quick overview so they know what to expect. So this does two things. First, it makes the clients feel more at ease. They're not wondering what's going to happen next or if it's going to be a lengthy discussion. Second, it positions you as someone who has a process. You're not just showing up and figuring it out as you go. You've done this before. And when the clients feel that, they relax and they trust you a lot faster. Number two, ask better questions. But before you even get to asking better questions in the call, there's one step that some of you might skip, and that is having an intake form. Because if you don't have one, you're basically going into the call blind. You're trying to understand their business, their goals, where the gaps are, all in real time. And that's when you start asking generic questions or missing important context. So for me, asking better questions actually starts before the call. Your intake form gives you the baseline, Then your job on the call is to go deeper. So let's say you are a social media manager. One of your questions on your intake form could be, what does sustainable social media growth look like for you in the next 6 months? And let's assume that your potential client would say 5K followers, launching an online course for passive income, maybe some brand deals, or maybe a maximum of 4 coaching clients on monthly retainer. So now instead of reacting to that at face value, this is where your guided follow-up questions come in during the call. You can ask things like, out of these goals, which of these matter the most right now? Maybe you can pick one or two. Have you tried growing your account before? What worked and what didn't? What's currently stopping you from reaching these goals that you mentioned? When you say 4 coaching clients a month, what does your current offer and funnel look like? And this is where it gets interesting because now you're not just hearing goals, you're understanding the gaps. You start to see if their expectations are realistic, if the problem isn't actually content, but maybe clarity, positioning, or their offer. And that's the difference. Anyone can ask, what do you need help with? But not everyone can guide a conversation in a way that uncovers what's really going on. And that's how you move from being seen as someone who executes tasks to someone who actually understands the business. Number 3, reflect and clarify. Before you jump into what you offer, repeat back what you are hearing. So going back to the earlier example where they said they want to grow to 5K followers, launch a course, get brand deals, and sign 4 coaching clients monthly, you can say something like, so from what you shared, it sounds like your main focus right now is turning your audience into paying clients, not just growing for the sake of numbers. And while follower growth matters, what you really want is a setup that actually brings in consistent inquiries and leads. Is that right? Asking that does 2 things. One, it shows you're actually listening and not just repeating what they said. 2, it makes the clients feel understood. And from my experience, this is where a lot of calls either click or don't. Because I've had calls before where I really skipped this part and went straight into solutions. But the moment I started pausing and reflecting things back, clients would literally say, yes, that's exactly it. And that really matters because you're not guessing what they need. You're confirming it with them. It also gives them a chance to correct you if something is off, which saves you a lot of time from building a solution around a wrong problem. And once you're both clear, that's when it actually makes sense to talk about how you can support them. Now let's talk about what to avoid when doing discovery calls. Number 1, don't overpower the call. Earlier, I said lead the call, right? But leading the call doesn't mean you will become the star of it. It doesn't mean you're the only one talking the entire time, explaining everything, filling every silence. Because when that happens, it stops being a conversation and starts feeling like a presentation. And that's a huge no. Discovery call, again, is not a one-person dialogue. You take turns listening and talking. And as much as possible, you really want the client to talk more. For me, my personal guide is about 50 to 60% of the time, I want my potential clients to talk more. And the reason is simple. The more they talk, the more information and context I get. You start to hear how they think, how they describe their problems, what they actually care about, not just what they think they should say to you. And that's where real information is. It also makes your job easier because instead of trying to come up with the ideal pitch, you're responding to what they're actually telling you. And on their end, it does not feel like they're being sold to, which is really one of the most important parts to remember. It feels like they are being heard. So yes, lead the call, guide it, give it structure, but don't take over the entire conversation because the goal isn't to impress them with how much you know. It's to understand them well enough that what you say actually matters. Number 2, do not over-explain your services. You don't need to list everything that you can do. That's usually where people start rambling. They feel like they have to prove themselves, so they start mentioning every skill, every tool, every possible service. And instead of building clarity, it actually does the opposite. opposite. It overwhelms your client. So keep it relevant to what they just shared. If they're struggling with consistency in their content, do not start talking about email marketing, funnels, launching, and everything else that you could do. Stay in the lane of the problem you just uncovered together. From experience, the moment I started to say too much, the client might have started, trying to piece together. They might be thinking, wait, do I need all of that? Is that included? Is this going to be more complicated than I thought? And that hesitation can cost you the yes. Simple and clear sells better. So instead of explaining everything, focus on what actually helps them move forward based on their situation. You can always expand later once there is trust. So on the call, your job is to make it easier for them to understand, not harder. If there's one thing I want you to take from this, it's this. Discovery calls are less about convincing and more about understanding. The more you understand the person in front of you, the easier it becomes to position your work in a way that actually makes sense for them. So instead of trying to get better at selling, focus on getting better at leading conversations like this. Because that is what separates someone who's offering a service from someone clients actually trust and want to work with long term. If this helped you rethink how you approach your discovery calls, make sure you are subscribed. Or even sign up to my email list so you'll be the first to know once a new video is out. I'll be sharing more around freelancing, systems, and how to build a version of your work that's actually sustainable. Bye for now, and I'll see you on the next one. Explore and learn more about the freelancing world by downloading my free guide called the Freelance Starter Kit. It's available in the description box below. Make sure that your email address is active, and please check both your inbox and spam folders after you're done signing up. You'll also see a link where you can submit your questions about freelancing so I can talk more about those in my upcoming videos. Thank you and see ya!